What if the most honest answer to the question, why are we here, is silence? Think about it. We arrive in this world without memory. We grow, we struggle, we love, we lose. And one day, we disappear. We know what happens between birth and death because we experience it. But before we were born, after we die, we don't truly know. And that gap, that vast unknown stretching behind us and ahead of us, creates one of the most unsettling questions humanity has ever faced. Does any of this actually mean anything? For as long as humans have been capable of self-awareness, we have wrestled with this uncertainty. We build stories to explain our origins. We create visions of the afterlife. We invent moral codes to guide our behavior. We form cultures, traditions, and belief systems that give structure to chaos. These frameworks comfort us. They tell us that our suffering serves a purpose, that our kindness matters, that justice ultimately prevails. But what if those frameworks are human creations rather than cosmic truths? This is where nihilism enters the conversation. Nihilism, in its simplest form, is the view that life lacks inherent meaning, objective value, or universal purpose. The term itself comes from the Latin word nihil, meaning nothing. It is not merely pessimism. It is not simply sadness or negativity. It is a radical questioning of whether the concepts we rely on, good and evil, right and wrong, purpose and destiny, exist beyond our own imagination. Many people encounter nihilistic thoughts at transitional moments in life. It might happen during adolescence, when childhood beliefs begin to unravel. It might happen after a personal tragedy, when old certainties fail to provide comfort. Or it might arise during quiet reflection, when you repeatedly ask yourself a single word. Why? Why is this considered good? Why is that considered bad? Why should I follow this rule? Why does success matter? Why does morality matter? If you continue pulling on that thread long enough, you may eventually reach a point where the answers stop. You discover that many of your beliefs were inherited from parents, teachers, culture, religion, or society. Trace them back further, and you may find they were shaped by survival needs, historical circumstances, or collective agreements. And if they are agreements, then they are not absolute. This realization can feel destabilizing. Like standing on what you thought was solid ground only to realize it is shifting sand. It is important to distinguish nihilism from related perspectives. A pessimist expects the worst outcome. They still believe in good and evil. They simply think evil will dominate. A cynic assumes people act primarily out of self-interest. They may distrust human goodness but do not deny the concept itself. An apathetic person might believe life has meaning but simply does not care. A nihilist, however, questions whether those categories are real in the first place. In this view, the universe does not assign moral labels. It does not declare actions good or bad. It does not embed purpose into existence, it simply exists. Imagine the familiar metaphor of a glass filled halfway with water. An optimist says it is half full. A pessimist says it is half empty. The nihilist might respond by asking why the glass matters at all. Whether full or empty, it will eventually break. Whether praised or criticized, it remains temporary. This perspective can extend beyond personal meaning into society itself. There are different expressions of nihilism. Political nihilism historically called for the dismantling of established institutions, arguing that progress requires tearing down existing systems. Ethical nihilism denies the existence of objective moral truths, suggesting that what we call morality is a social invention. Existential nihilism, the most commonly discussed form, claims that individual life has no inherent value or purpose. Such ideas can feel dangerous. If there is no objective morality, then what prevents chaos? If life has no intrinsic value, what stops cruelty? If right and wrong are human constructs, why obey them? These concerns have troubled philosophers for centuries. One of the most influential figures in this discussion was Friedrich Nietzsche. He observed that traditional religious and moral structures in Europe were weakening. Scientific advancements and cultural shifts were eroding the authority that faith once held. When he declared that God is dead, he was not making a literal theological claim. He was describing the decline of shared belief systems that once provided moral certainty. Nietzsche predicted that this erosion would usher in an age of nihilism. Without a central framework to anchor values, societies could drift toward fragmentation. People might struggle to justify their beliefs or defend their moral positions. If someone challenges your sense of right and wrong, and you cannot explain it beyond, "That's how I feel," persuasion becomes difficult. He feared that this vacuum of meaning could lead to instability, even catastrophe. When long-standing institutions collapse without replacement, confusion follows. History provides examples of societies unraveling when shared values disintegrate. In times of ideological emptiness, destructive movements can gain traction. Consider figures like Adolf Hitler. Most people instinctively condemn his actions as evil. But within a strictly nihilistic framework, that condemnation becomes a human judgment rather than an objective truth. If morality is entirely constructed, then calling something wrong is an expression of collective preference rather than a universal fact. That possibility unsettles many thinkers because it weakens the foundation of moral accountability. Yet Nietzsche did not simply advocate despair. He believed that the collapse of outdated value systems could create an opportunity. If old beliefs no longer hold, humanity must create new ones. Rather than clinging to inherited morality, individuals could consciously craft their own principles. The destruction of the old house, he argued, should not leave us homeless. It should give us the chance to build something stronger. Today, signs of cultural transition are visible everywhere. Traditional authorities, religious institutions, governments, long-standing social norms no longer command the unquestioned loyalty they once did. Social media amplifies diverse ideologies. Practices that were once taboo are openly debated. Almost every viewpoint, no matter how controversial, can find defenders. This environment can feel liberating. People have more freedom to define their identity and values. But it can also feel chaotic. Without widely shared standards, disagreements intensify. One person's truth clashes with another's, and when someone asks, "Why is your position correct?" the answer is not always clear. This uncertainty mirrors the existential dimension of nihilism. If the universe provides no blueprint, we are left to construct one ourselves. The absence of cosmic meaning does not eliminate human experience. Pain still hurts. Joy still uplifts. Love still transforms. Even if existence is temporary, its effects within that temporary frame are tangible. Imagine attending a live performance. The actors step on stage, deliver their lines, and exit. The set is dismantled. The audience goes home. The entire event exists for a few hours. Does its brevity make it meaningless? Or does its impermanence intensify its significance? Some argue that meaning does not require eternity. A sunset lasts minutes, a song lasts seconds. Yet both can move us profoundly. Perhaps meaning operates within context, rather than across infinity. Nihilism challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths. It asks whether we have been outsourcing responsibility for purpose. If we expect the universe to provide meaning, we may feel abandoned when it does not. But if meaning is something humans generate, then responsibility shifts back to us. This shift can be frightening. It removes the safety net of predetermined answers, but it also grants creative power. If there is no universal script, then you are not bound to a role written by someone else. The paradox of nihilism lies here. On one hand, it suggests that nothing ultimately matters in a cosmic sense. On the other hand, it forces individuals to decide what will matter in their personal sphere. In a universe indifferent to our existence, choosing to care becomes an act of defiance. Instead of asking whether life has meaning in some absolute sense, perhaps the more productive question is how meaning functions within human life. We are meaning-making creatures. We tell stories. We form attachments. We create art, laws, technologies, and movements. Even the claim that nothing matters is itself an interpretation. The danger of nihilism is apathy, the belief that effort is pointless. The opportunity within nihilism is autonomy, the realization that you are free to define your priorities. Look at modern society. Rapid technological advancement, shifting cultural norms, and declining trust in institutions create a landscape where inherited beliefs are questioned more than ever. Some see moral decay. Others see progress. What is undeniable is that certainty is fading. When shared narratives dissolve, humanity stands at a crossroads. One path leads to fragmentation and conflict. The other leads to intentional reconstruction, the deliberate creation of values grounded not in blind tradition but in conscious choice. The question then becomes, can a society sustain itself without believing in objective meaning? Or must we collectively agree on certain principles to function? Perhaps the future will reveal a hybrid approach, an acknowledgement that ultimate cosmic answers may remain unknown, combined with a commitment to human-centered ethics. We may never resolve the mystery of existence, but we can decide how to treat one another within it. In the end, nihilism does not force despair. It forces confrontation. It strips away comforting illusions and asks whether we can stand without them. It challenges us to examine why we believe what we believe. And in doing so, it exposes both the fragility and resilience of human thought. If life truly lacks inherent meaning, then every act of kindness, every pursuit of knowledge, every expression of love becomes something remarkable. Not because the universe commands it, but because we choose it. And here is the lingering thought. If humanity is entering another era where old certainties are crumbling and new ones have not yet solidified, we may be living through the very transformation philosophers once predicted. The structures that guided past generations are shifting. The question is not simply whether nihilism is spreading. The real question is this: when the old sources of meaning finally fall silent, what new meaning will we dare to create, and who will decide what it becomes?